Hello. I am really very frustrated and concerned with the direction I've seen America going in the past 2 decades, I guess, maybe longer. Um, Honestly, I'm not sure even entirely what to say about this topic, but I want to share with you what I've noticed, and that is that special interests, lobbyists, politicians, and certain of the and when I say this, I don't mean all of them, okay, and rich people. I don't mean all of any of these groups, but there are some very disturbing things going on in the United States regarding the political situation, and it has me deeply concerned because it's one thing when you pander as a politician to an audience to get their vote, but it's another thing when you psychologically manipulate them to get their vote. Because, number one, psychological manipulation takes advantage of your hopes and fears and makes it so that you're kind of like imprisoned by them in a manner of speaking. I'm not going to name any candidates or any politicians who do this, because just doing that alone will produce a bias in you for or against what I'm saying. I just want you, please, just to think about what I'm saying. So, when somebody, say for example, makes you afraid of a situation, or they speak of a situation that you're already afraid of, and plays on that, uses that as a speaking point, and instead of giving you facts and figures and things, they just use your emotions. They don't really care about you. What they care about is getting control of you. And when I say control, I don't mean a momentary control. For many people, especially if it deeply resonates with them, for many people, this can be a very deep and long-lasting condition. So it is a kind of brainwashing in a way, because it triggers an emotional response. And the stronger the emotional response, the better for them, the worse it is for the victims. And I say victims very purposefully. So when you are triggered emotionally by something, unless you have trained yourself or been trained professionally to resist emotional manipulation, you will be manipulated and you will be controlled by the people who you think are on your side. And they may be on your side, don't get me wrong, but politicians tend to take advantage of this chink in our armor, this weakness that we have when it comes to emotions, in order to make us do what they want, which can be as simple as giving our vote to that person. This is a very dangerous thing to do. And the reason I say this is this. It's one thing to run a campaign so that you've got people who want to vote for you because they really have been convinced they don't like the other person. Whether that was their opinion or not, whether it's based on fact or just an emotional response, that's not the point here. The point is that you've got that situation, all right? So when, however, you are pulling people into you, using their hopes and fears, promising them things that either will be very difficult to accomplish because of opposition from other politicians, or opposition from the public, or just things that you realistically, as whatever your position is, can't actually accomplish. But the general public may not be aware that how difficult or impossible it is to do these things. when you put all that emotional flavoring into this magnetism, I guess you could call it, this manipulation that you're using, then these people cannot be approached on that topic. So even if you know that your best friend has been manipulated emotionally by a politician or the media is very, very, very responsible and very culpable in this activity as well. That you realize your best friend has been manipulated and is no longer, they have clouded judgment. They have an unwillingness to listen. You can present facts until you are out of breath, and they will not budge. In fact, they'll become more intransigent. How do you say that? Intransigent? They will become more intractable than ever before. And it will become very frustrating and can actually lead to the end of relationships. And obviously, that's not a good thing. I mean, why should we be giving up our relationships because of something a politician or the media said? Now, I can understand, like, say, for example, if it suddenly came out that I'm a psychopath or a serial killer, and that was blasted all over the internet, all over the news and stuff like that, which I'm not. And everybody suddenly wanted to lynch me, and they hated me and stuff like that. Well, that'd be perfectly understandable, because serial killers are pretty dangerous, and psychopaths have the potential to be very dangerous, in fact, more dangerous than serial killers. But, if you've got a friend who has been tricked, and you could even be an expert in the field on which they have been tricked, and they won't listen to you because they no longer. Usually, it's an authority. There's also an aspect of this manipulation, this indoctrination, this control, wherein they call to question authority figures who say differently than you do, and they'll use things. Like claiming that they say this is the truth, but the real truth is, or they will say you need to be careful of anybody who's saying this kind of thing. So they plant the seeds of doubt to close the doors in the person's mind, so that the truth cannot be shared with that person, because that person has been primed to disbelieve. So authority figures automatically become distrusted. Experts in the field become distrusted. If you are an expert in the field and an authority figure, well, gosh, you're in trouble then. So you could be very, very personally frustrated trying to explain something. I mean, I'm going to give you, it's a very superficial example, but it is an example of how intransigent somebody can become, how illogical somebody can become. And you may be a victim of this already and not even be aware of it. Most of us fall victim to it at least, at least every year, if not more often. And I'm not going to say that I'm never immune. I've fallen prey to it myself. So many years ago, my mom, she came to visit us in Indonesia. We were really struggling. Things had gotten pretty bleak, and she came to provide support for us. And shortly after she arrived, she and I were talking about her finances, and she and I talked specifically about computers and the internet. I don't remember how we got on the topic. It doesn't even matter. But she reminded me that now this was in I want to say this was in 2012. She said in 2006 her computer died, and she hadn't bothered to get it fixed. 2006, and she still had the computer in 2012, 6 years later, and she had the same internet service that she had when she had the computer. She was still paying the same, I don't know, $10, $20. I think it was $10 a month. for that internet service, although she hadn't used it for 6 years, it came with an email address. I said, Mom, why don't you save yourself $10, get rid of the internet service, and you can get the free email that the same company offers, or you can get free email from another company. Now, just to keep in mind here, she had previously used the free email from that company before buying the internet service from them. And I said, you can save yourself $10 a month. That's $120 a year. You've been doing this for 6 years, so that's what, $720, something like that you've spent on something you could have had for free. And it didn't matter the facts that I presented to her. It didn't matter that she was like, well, I might get my computer fixed. I might get a new computer. And I was like, well, Mom, it's been 6 years. If you haven't done it in the past 6 years, why do you think that's going to change? She would not listen. She would not be reasonable about it. And this is just a very superficial example of the kind of behavior you can see in somebody. It's I don't want to say it's a cult mentality, but it is in actuality similar, and they use similar tactics to what a cult uses. Now, if you've never learned about cults, they're very manipulative. They overwhelm you with positive feelings. They draw you in and get you more and more committed, and eventually they start taking away your freedom. They start taking your money. They start taking your properties, and they eventually take control of your life, sometimes to the point of sexually using you or your children. They may torture and murder members of the cult. And it can be very, very ugly in the worst case scenarios. In the best case scenarios, people are doing okay, but they don't have their own personal property and money, and that's not bad. But when it becomes abusive, is a big concern. So I don't know if I'm getting through to here that one of the big dangers that I've seen in the past 2-3 decades here is that politicians are pitting us against each other to get votes. They are making us categorize everybody in a similar way to enemies in war, which is to say that they are dehumanizing the other side. Now, there's never really one other side in a situation. There are always multiple sides. Okay? There are multiple positions you can have in a situation. But they try to simplify it, because if you can make it an us versus them situation, it's very easy to consolidate your control over these people, over you, over me, whoever. And that means that the more you convince them that the other side is bad or wrong or dangerous even, the less likely there can ever be open dialogue to find a compromise, to find middle ground, to find common ground. And that means that there is a schism, there is a rift, a split, a vast divide between the two sides that have been created by these politicians and the media, especially, and with them, the elitists in the background pulling the strings. So you can not only not be able to compromise with each other, but you can find it very, very difficult to have non-confrontational conversations. In fact, I see it a lot on the internet. I see people calling each other communists, and especially now socialists, whereas communists has kind of fallen out of favor in favor of socialism, as if everything about socialism is bad. But in America we have a lot of social functions: Social Security, welfare, work for money, Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, WIC, and a lot of other programs that we have actually are socialistic in nature, is taking care of society. So there are good and bad aspects of socialism. So calling somebody a socialist is really kind of like a lukewarm. It's kind of a mixed message, really. And they'll call each other, things. Oh, all the liberals, or all the conservatives, or all the libertarians, or all the whatever. Everybody gets lumped together now. And the funny thing of it is if you actually bother to ask people who are liberals or conservatives or whatever it is, you'll find that they don't necessarily agree with what you're angry about. I mean, in the sense that, say, for example, you're angry that the price of beans is increasing. And you say, oh, all liberals, they're responsible for the price of beans going up, and they're happy about that. And if you were to actually talk to liberals, you would discover that many of them, and I understand this is just a silly example, okay? Many of them would say, you know what? I don't agree with that either. I'm not happy with what's happening with the price of beans. I think it's wrong. Now, if you want a more real-life situation, we can talk about the price of corn. The price of corn has been impacted by making ethanol from corn and making other things from corn, so that a portion of the corn crops are being bought up for these products, and sometimes that creates a scarcity of corn, and that causes the price of corn to, which is a very popular food, to go up a lot. In addition to that fact, because we're eating a lot of corn, we're also having an imbalanced diet because corn is in so much of what we eat. It's in the cows that we eat, it's in the chickens that we eat, it's in the goats that we eat, it's in the deer that we eat because people feed corn to deer. It's in all kinds of different animals that we're eating. So the animals are getting an imbalanced diet, and we are too. But I digress. I'm verging way far away from the topic here. So we are under siege. And we are not only under siege, but the enemy is clearly visible, but they are actually dividing us up. They're separating us based on using words like socialist or liberal or conservative. They're dividing us up based on skin color. They're dividing us up based on religion. They're dividing us up in gun owners and non-gun owners. They're dividing us up in so many ways, and that works well for them, but not for us. The reason I say it works well for them is because it gives them control, like push-button control sometimes, over a large constituency. It's bad for us because we're no longer thinking for ourselves. We're not critically thinking, we're not analyzing, we're not even researching to find out the truth. We're not looking at valid sources. There are a lot of sources of information on the internet that are bad, that are deliberately manipulative, that are deliberately lying to you. They're all over the internet. If you don't use scholarly resources, and even then sometimes, you are really in danger of being misled. There are a lot I don't want to give real life examples because I don't want anybody to be suddenly turned off because you've been indoctrinated by and turned off by that example. I want you to open your mind and think about the possibility that maybe something you've said is not correct. Please don't use the regular internet. Find a search engine that specializes in scholarly research, or if you don't have, well, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but not everybody is good at critical thinking, at analysis, at research. If you don't have the ability to do that, find a forum that you can go to where many experts go there and ask them questions. It could be in person, it could be on the internet. Just find a reliable place. Maybe it's run by an association of doctors or an association of scientists or something like that. Don't go to political organizations. Be careful with nonprofits because a lot of nonprofits are fronts for a political agenda. But find the experts. and talk to them. Go to universities and talk to them. They're not all going to agree with each other, but at least you're getting expert opinion from different experts. And don't just talk to one. Don't just talk to two. Talk to several. But you really need to start thinking in a not so emotional way. Don't let people take advantage of you. So like if I say you effer you, that's an easy way to manipulate people. A lot of people, if you start swearing at them, they get upset. And the more you swear, the more upset they get until you can actually get them to fight you, to attack you, and then you can throw them in jail because they attacked you. You were going like this with your hands up, but you were swearing like hell at them, and on the camera, they can see you've got your hands up, and then the person, bam, punches you in the face. Well, guess what? You can file charges against that person for attacking you. That's just a very, very simple example. I'm really worried the direction that America is going in. And for the longest time, there have been abuses of our government. There's the Electoral College, which is not valid for us anymore. There's gerrymandering, which is to redefine political districts to marginalize specific political groups so that they don't have any voting power, so that they can't win a district. There is filibustering and riders and all kinds of other nonsense when it comes to legislative decisions, last-minute voting after a major change to a large bill, thousands and thousands of pages that have to be looked through to find the changes, and so on and so forth. It's huge. We don't have a meritocracy. People are not put into positions of power based on their merit, based on their ability, based on their renown for being an expert in something. They're put into positions of power often based on their political connections, based on who they donated money to. Like the Postmaster General, DeJoy, he was put into power not because he has a background in the Postal Service, and not because as a former postal employee and having talked to other postal employees, I can tell you right now that his motivations in the Postal Service are not to help make the Postal Service better or to make it more solvent, but to undermine it so that people who want to privatize it so they can profit off of it can do so. There are solutions to make the United States Postal Service solvent. There are solutions so that your mail doesn't take a week to get to you, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or never. There are solutions out there. I mean, it's ridiculous. I get messages, mail, from my mother's nursing home, which is a 20-minute drive from where I live, and it takes 10 days for it to be delivered to me, because of some of the policies that DeJoy has put into place. And they won't get rid of DeJoy. Why? Because a lot of the people that are on the board that could get rid of DeJoy are politically motivated not to get rid of him. They want the same thing he wants. They want the dissolution of the Postal Service so that private agencies can take it over and profit off of it. I don't think that's going to be a good idea. And I don't think you realize how hard it is to be a carrier. It's hard. It's so hard. And for the amount of money you earn, it really isn't actually worth it. It looks like a lot of money, but really it's not worth it. I mean, you're dealing with so many negative factors, dangerous factors even. And you get paid like, a base pay of like $17, $18, $19 an hour. It's just insane for the amount of risk you're taking. And that's a whole nother story. Look, our government is broken. Some politicians, are taking severe advantage of the loopholes, of the broken parts. And they are using us and our political system to make themselves rich. I mean, look at ex-presidents. They get lifetime Secret Service protection, and they get lifetime $1 million a month. or something like that. It's at least $1 million a month now. I think it's more than that, actually. Why? How many people in this country retire after 4 or 8 years and get anything from a company? And yet, for life, these people. Look, I understand that emotionally speaking, we don't want to see an ex-president die broke in the gutter, okay? But the reality of it is that 4 to 8 years of service, giving somebody $1 million a month in circuit service, it doesn't mean that you're going to become a better person. It doesn't mean you're going to do the right thing while you're in office. It just is adding to the pot. And, you know, I personally don't believe that somebody who spends 4 to 8 years as the president, which is a figurehead, which, yes, they make, another part of the problem with our situation is that the executive branch, the president, has been taking more and more power unlawfully away from Congress, doing things that really the executive order system was not designed to do and should not be doing. Please, folks, be very careful. Be very careful when you see any person trying to divide us up. Because in a nation that is divided is a nation that cannot stand up, is a nation that is dysfunctional, is a nation that's full of crime and hate crimes and violence, is a nation that ultimately is enslaved. We are living in a gilded cage. And when you see people, especially politicians, but also others, who are making emotional appeals to your decisions, those are the people you should be careful about. Because while emotions can be wonderful, they are also the easiest way to take control of your brain and make you do what they want you to do. I think I've said enough. I hope you get it. I hope you'll start thinking and making a difference so that we can unify this country instead of allowing them to destroy it further and take advantage of us further and enslave us further. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.